Chad, after the Baylor women started out 0-2 in the Big 12, Nikki Collins' team turned it around, ended up clinching a share of the Big 12 championship with a road win at Iowa State yesterday, as we record the podcast Monday night. So you're going to address some of this in a column that you're writing, but what do you feel like has kind of come together for the Baylor women? And do you feel like, they're a threat to make a deep NCAA run?
Well, Nalyssa opened up a little bit. Nalyssa Smith opened up a little bit more last night, maybe than anybody really has, about the process that the players went through when Kim Mulkey left. And then, Nikki Collins was hired. And, she said that she and Queen and Caitlin Bickle really, talked about it, prayed about it, things like that. And they decided to, to stick it out and be here. And she said she really likes the result and she feels like they deserve it. And it's hard to argue that point because, sitting there at 0-2 for whatever reason, I think a lot of people thought that they were really shaky. I think I maintained the whole time that I thought they would have a chance to win the conference when the last couple of weeks of the season rolled around, because they're just too talented of a roster. They're a much more talented roster than anybody else in the Big 12. Iowa State has some nice players, some really good shooters. Texas has some good younger players and a top-notch coach, I think, in Vic Schaefer, although he's kind of been a little bit wobbly lately, a little bit kind of out there some of the time. But anyway, Baylor had the roster all along, and it's not like they were ever playing bad. It's just that they weren't playing great up until, they beat Kansas in that game up at Lawrence Fieldhouse. And then, just started to click. I think beating Iowa State as badly as they did the first time around really helped them build momentum. Now they've won 14 out of 15. And, Nalyssa Smith just almost quietly, although I don't know how you could say scoring 30 points a night and 12 to 15 rebounds. She's always been the same player, but she's moved up to that number one pick spot, in the WNBA mock drafts. And I think probably a lot of women's college basketball was watching that game last night, and she really was impressive. So, Nalyssa choosing to stay, I made the point in the column, she could have been like a lot of these NBA guys and picked her spot and made it a super team, this year. And, she didn't. And she was clearly the MVP of that game last night. I think we had the discussion last week about who the player of the year in the conference is. And I don't think there's any doubt anymore.
No, there is no doubt. I was going to make that point too. She goes for 28 and 20 in a clinching game, and basically they just had no answer for her. She did it in every kind of fashion. She faced up. She occasionally did, some back to the basket stuff. She had a really nice dream shake in the in the lane. That was sweet. But
that's another point that I made in the column, is that the NBA, the ESPN announcers want to talk about how, she could play any position on the floor and she's expanded her game. And that's a nice compliment, and it's true to a certain extent. But what Nalyssa has been this year for Baylor is what Baylor needs her to be, which is her kind of like Nalyssa Smith as a post player, a face to the basket post player, but also a lot of times, sometimes a back to the basket post player,
You did sort of gloss over or miss part of that question, which was, what are they going to do in the tournament?
Oh, how far in the tournament? Well, I'll put it this way. I've got opening day tickets to the Rangers, which may or may not happen for MLB reasons. But if the MLB gets together, that's on the Thursday that I would be traveling to Minneapolis for the Final Four. And I'm starting to think my chances of going aren't real good.
Yeah, you may be selling those tickets.